If the charges do come, Trump would then be arraigned before a judge, processed and fingerprinted. Now, Trump's legal team already said that he would report or surrender if this possible indictment does come down. Logistics would need to be worked out since they're dealing with the New York Police Department as well as the Secret Service. An indictment, though, would be a lengthy process and would likely be an uphill legal battle, as Trump's lawyers would probably and most likely put forward some sort of case against this. Back to you.
John Glasgow live for us outside the courthouse there in Manhattan with the very latest. John, thank you. Joining us right now is Donald Trump's own attorney, Joe Tacopina, and also alongside him, former U.S. Attorney Brett Tolman, the executive director of Right on Crime and a constitutional law expert. Gentlemen, it is great to have you in. This is a big development here. I want to get to you first. Joe, what is your sense, seeing that, D.A. Bragg has told the grand jury to stay home in your experience as a lawyer? Is this very significant? Do you think this is all due to what Robert Costello said about Michael Cohen and possibly discrediting him in the mind of these grand jurors?
Bianca, it's like reading tea leaves. I'm a former prosecutor as well, and I've run grand juries, and it's just hard to tell. It could be anything from an illness to a logistical scheduling issue to someone basically, gave us a little tap on the head there and said, "Are you sure you want to do this? Are you seeing the reaction out there?" Both not from the partisan right, but from all sides of the aisle about how horrific this would be. This would be a case of first impression, but it would be a case that is unsustainable because legally there is no crime. And I say that with the utmost confidence. So I don't know if it's just him having sort of a second thought here, maybe reviewing things, or it could just be a logistical thing. Who knows? It's something that I have absolutely no inside information on.
All right. That's fair, and we don't know. Everything's in secret unless, of course, it gets leaked, Brett, and then, of course, then we find out about it. What do you read about what's happening here? Do you think D.A. Bragg, while many have said that this case, as you just heard Joe say, it's something that they would not win. I mean, prosecutors want to win cases, but yet he is going to go forward, many say, with this. This is the charge?
Bianca, thanks for having me on. I spent, roughly a decade in front of grand juries, and I'll tell you that, we always talk about grand juries will indict a ham sandwich, and that's not an understatement. And don't think for a second that Alvin Bragg isn't actually counting on that. And does he care about whether or not he'll win the case? Too many prosecutors nowadays are more concerned about the optics. They're more concerned about getting the charges in. And then what happens? A lot of destruction occurs when charges are brought, especially when you don't have the evidence to support it. Here, I think it's a calculation, both by Bragg and by others that are pushing him to do this. I don't think they have the evidence to sustain the charges throughout the prosecution. I also think that the grand jury has so far been denied probably exculpatory evidence. And if that's the case, there's also a serious concern in terms of the ethics of what they're doing in front of the grand jury.
I mean, that's it. And Joe, Robert Costello went in with a packet, he said, of 361 emails that he showed the grand jury and said the prosecutor has cherry-picked about a handful of these and they are out of context. He said that Cohen is not credible at all. I mean, we can't be surprised that a prosecutor would cherry-pick, but it was that significant enough, you think, for the grand jury to maybe, they didn't call Cohen back in yet, but could they possibly still do that?
Sure, they could, but what Brett said is right on. We will be making ferocious motions from the get-go regarding selective prosecution, targeting prosecution, and when a grand jury proceeding is not fair and complete, and they're hiding, if you will, exculpatory evidence, because Costello has said he's given all those emails to the prosecution, but allowed them weren't put before the grand jury. I'm familiar with some of those emails. They make Michael Cohen out to be a pathological liar, someone who said completely the opposite of what he's saying now. Not too long ago, and to his own attorney. Now, this is not on a TV show. Michael Cohen would be on every television show that would allow him on, saying that Donald Trump's the greatest person in the world and he would never do anything wrong. Of course, now he's saying exactly the opposite. He expects everyone to believe him. He's got a very limited audience. One network seems to use him as an expert all the time, even though he's a convicted felon, a convicted liar, convicted perjurer. But it's really mind-boggling that their case is being built on this. Alvin Bragg said not too long ago that he doesn't see a world in where he would have Michael Cohen as a witness against Donald Trump. Maybe perhaps he's changed his mind, or maybe perhaps enough pressure has gotten to him by his support base to force him to do this. But my God, the day we start prosecuting people because we don't like them, or we don't agree with their politics, or we want to kneecap them as a political candidate, is the day this country's really turned itself on its head. And I think we're getting there right now, because this is nothing more than weaponization of the a DA's office, a prosecutor's office, and the justice system. And in my 32 years doing this, I've never seen anything like it, ever.
You got 42 years. Let's play what Dershowitz told me yesterday here on the program, in his experience, what he thinks of this case, and brag.
But I think that he's looking for 15 minutes of fame right now. And this may very, very well backfire. This is the worst abuse of prosecutorial discretion I've seen in my 60 years of practicing law.
60 years.
Okay. I'm 30. I'm 32. He's 60, so I guess he beats me. But that's 92 years combined.
Let's do the math. That's a lot of years. Brett, you don't have to give us your age. Would never go there. But I mean, when we're looking at this, though, how destructive could this be, if this indictment happens for the country? For already there's so much distrust with the weaponized DOJ. I mean, just moving forward, the fact that we are covering this and the unprecedented historic nature of this, which does look like it will happen, just perhaps, not this week. Tell us about how you think the country will handle this.
A lot of people commenting about the danger to our country, and I wholeheartedly agree. But let's back up and take a look at what's actually happening. You have a district attorney that does not have sufficient evidence, does not have law supporting the case, and is proceeding to use the grand jury to bring an indictment against an individual he's already proclaimed that he doesn't believe he had the evidence sufficient to indict him. What it tells us is there's very little checks and balances and accountability for prosecutors who want to wield the enormous authority that we've given them. We need to rein that in as a country. We need to have accountability. There's very little you can do to a DA that is going to exercise this kind of prosecutorial abuse. You can file a bar complaint, but other than that, there's not a crime that you can bring against them. And what it tells us is our country and our constitutional fabric is vulnerable to those that would wield power unrighteously. And that's what's happening here.
Well said. 30 seconds. Final thought to you, Joe. When's next time you'll be speaking with Donald Trump? What are you going to talk to him about? What can you share with us, that's not confidential? Just give us some inside knowledge there on how you're going to move forward today.
I mean, I speak to the president every day, and we go through. I'm maybe in the minority. No, I am in the minority, but I still hold out hope that justice will prevail. That somebody with some sanity is going to get a hold of DA Bragg and say, "Don't do this." This will be a lasting stain on that office, and it's something that will, honestly, I believe, will embolden the supporters of Donald Trump. They will see that the system is being weaponized against him. Everything he's been saying is going to come to fruition. And I think it's going to just launch him and propel him into the White House, honestly. That being said, of course, I don't want this to happen, because it would be such a grave miscarriage of justice. But I will tell you this, Bianca, whether it's today, tomorrow, or next year, we will win this case. This case will not survive, and Alvin Bragg will not get his conviction. He'll have his 15 minutes, but he will not get his conviction. And I'll be sure to remind everyone about what he did.
We'll have you back. Joe Tacopina, Brett Tolman. Gentlemen, thank you for your time on this massive story that is developing minute by minute. We certainly appreciate it.